Hi folks, Johnny Matthew here. Welcome back to the blog pod. This is the short form audio version of the blog post that you can read over on Substack at johnnyvm.substack.com. I hope you're okay. Welcome if this is your first time, and welcome also if you're coming back for more. This time we are talking about Children on the Margins number 1. A new report dissected and improved. I'm going to do two podcasts this week and next week on this one, and two blogs rather on this, because it just got very long and it seems better to split it up into two. But because it's quite a wide-ranging subject, children on the margins, I thought better to split it up and make it more manageable. So this is number 1. So here we go. Introduction. My first full day back from the Christmas and New Year break began when this report landed in my inbox. It's from the Welsh Government and it's called Children on the Margins. Now, having had time to read it, I thought you guys might appreciate a summarised version, as it raises some interesting and important things. And as I say, it's quite a broad-ranging report. I've had to break it up into two, so let's crack on with this one. So in brief, the Children on the Margins report by the Welsh Parliament's Children, Young People and Education Committee. It sheds light on the complex factors contributing to child marginalisation in Wales. Now, please don't freak out if you're not in Wales. If you are in a modern Western society, or probably any society, but certainly a Western society, this will absolutely have resonance for you. You don't need to be just in the UK, and certainly not just in Wales. The report offers recommendations for systemic change and outlines, with some interpretation and considerable digging, I have to say, actionable steps for practitioners working with vulnerable children. So what's the focus of the report? The report investigates the structural and social factors that contribute to child marginalisation, with a focus on children who are at heightened risk due to poverty, abuse, trauma, neglect, and systemic discrimination. It highlights how these factors intersect, creating complex challenges that require multi-agency collaboration and sustained intervention. Blah, blah, blah. And on it goes. Now, you know, like all such documents, it's full of words, it's very long, and it takes far longer than it should to get to the point. So what I've done is dropped the whole thing into an AI, got a summary, gone through it, hacked it again to distill it, and then added quite a lot of my own thoughts and caveats and things to it. So for me, the focus of the report was very much on children who go missing and are therefore vulnerable to exploitation of various kinds, most notably, well, at least in the report, criminal and sexual exploitation. So there are three kind of, I'd say, main chunks or sort of areas that it focuses on. Children who go missing, as I say, so examining why they go missing, the dangers they face while they're absent, and the systemic weaknesses in responding well to that. Then there's child criminal exploitation, looking at how vulnerable children are exploited for criminal activities, and how sort of inconsistencies in the way we define criminal exploitation. Sorry, I'm bashing my microphone there. Not to mention a lack of funding. How these inconsistencies hinder coherent and effective interventions. And then really there's a kind of catch-all other marginalised groups where there is some recognition, not a lot, which I'll comment on later, of other groups such as neurodivergent kids, unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, care experienced young people and children living in poverty as being particularly vulnerable. So really the report emphasised missed opportunities. It's moments when early intervention could have changed the trajectory for these kids but failed, usually due to systemic gaps It underscores the importance of adopting a trauma-informed approach, which I really liked, where professionals recognise the impact of adverse experiences on a child's behaviour, development and well-being. And then additionally, like every report since the Stone Age, it highlights the important role of multi-agency collaboration. I guess, and across sectors, healthcare, education, social services, focusing on the need to improve information sharing and communication. But that's another blah, blah, blah moment coming on. At its core, the reports are called to move beyond good intentions and address the kind of systemic failures, wider failures, in preventing effective support for marginalised kids. Now, this I like. But to me, it read a bit like the Welsh government telling off the Welsh government for not moving fast enough to sort it out. There are a number of occasions throughout the report where they said, well, we've actually looked into this. We've actually already made recommendation of this. Can we not just get on with it? So I'll whiz through the primary recommendations and then just say a little bit at the end. There are I've summarised these, but they're kind of in the sort of 8, I'd say, pretty narrow categories where recommendations are made. There's 23 individual recommendations in the report. But these are the kind of 8 main themes. Number 1, data collection and accuracy. The report says the Welsh Government needs to improve accuracy and reliability of data on children who go missing. Data needs to be comprehensive and include factors like age, care status, and the reasons for going missing. I have a colleague who runs a missing service, and one of the things that we often talk about is that there are different people providing this. There are different agencies competing for the funding to provide this, and that's tricky. And that gives rise to all kinds of issues around what data is collected, where it goes, who keeps it, etc. So data collection and accuracy. Number 2, statutory return interviews. Following every missing incident, children should be offered a statutory return interview, and they should be conducted by a trusted adult chosen by the child, ensuring consistency and reliability. Now, this happens in lots of different areas. I know where I am, the police are very involved in this, and they partner up with the agency who provide the statutory return interviews. But I guess across Wales it may not be so robustly provided for. And I think there's probably the lack of a clear statutory duty to do that interview. So that's really quite important. Number 3, legal definitions and frameworks. So the report advocates for a clear statutory definition of child criminal exploitation in UK law to ensure consistent responses. Otherwise, people will tend to respond to lots of different things. So, for example, is child sexual exploitation part of child criminal exploitation or not? Are we sure that child criminal exploitation events or episodes don't have a sexual element always, even if it's just a threat? And if they do, is that not also sexual exploitation? So there's some work to do around legal definitions and frameworks. And then it urges the Welsh Government to explore the feasibility of a national strategy for tackling child criminal exploitation. Number 4, training for frontline professionals. So the report says we need to develop training resources and tools to improve awareness and intervention capabilities among professionals, and to ensure that training extends beyond social services to include healthcare providers, educators, youth work, I would add there, and police. Again, lots of professionals come across this. The training is disparate and provided by different players, and maybe a central hub with some real input around the stuff on missing and CCE particularly. So that's the first 4: data collection and accuracy, stat return interviews, and then to get the legal definitions and frameworks right and provide training for frontline professionals. Quick breather and coffee slurp time. Number 5, strengthening multi-agency collaboration. I think I went to my first child practice review or serious case review about, 20 odd years ago. And every similar forum I've been in ever since, as I move inexorably towards retirement, has said the same thing. We need to do better on multi-agency collaboration. And yet we insist at a higher up kind of macro level in pitting agencies against each other constantly to compete for funding. And that makes the whole thing very difficult. But the report says we need to improve communication and information sharing, of course, and to develop platforms for sharing safeguarding information across regional boundaries. Oh, amen to that. I mean, I work once a week in the National Forensic Team here in Wales in the Tier 4 Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. And it's a constant bane of ours that information throughout the child's life disappears and is slowly diluted as the child moves around the country, often as the family is, moving from problem to problem or from potential arrest to potential arrest or because of community detention. But as kids and families move, that information gets lost. So a central place to have that information stored would be great, and that would be part of the strengthening multi-agency collaboration. Number 6, preventative services and early intervention. Anybody who read last week's post on making 2025 a year of books will have heard me sing the praises of Michael Marmot's book on called The Health Gap, about health inequalities. And he's quite strong in there about the importance of early intervention programs. So on this one, preventive services and early intervention, they're saying that needs to be invested in, particularly in intervention programs early on through schools, community services, because prevention basically is better than cure. And also to equip schools to identify early signs of exploitation or marginalisation and develop clear reporting pathways for that. And again, I know that varies. Where I am here, it's pretty good. But I don't know where it's like elsewhere. There are doubtless be people not quite in that place and others doing it better. So again, something more unified and clear would be good. Number 7, focus on trauma-informed care. We need to embed trauma-informed practices across all child-focused services. Of course we do. And we need to ensure that staff understand the long-term impacts of adverse childhood experiences. Now, you'd think kind of a decade or more really since that whole idea started. Well, it's more than that now. It'll be 17 years this year. I think Vince Felitti and Robert Ander produced their first ACEs academic paper in 1998. It took a while to catch on, but it's firmly embedded here now in the psyche of the system. What we need to now do is keep pushing and keep drilling down on that to ensure that that stuff gets embedded properly. And personally, I'd put out a plea for that knowledge base to be firmly embedded in all professional training programs. Really important. Focus on trauma-informed care. Number 8, holistic safeguarding strategies. Establish risk assessment tools to identify children vulnerable to exploitation, and ensure consistency in responses across different safeguarding agencies. So that's the 8 recommendations. I'll run through those quickly for you. Better data collection accuracy, statutory returns, interviews, legal definitions and frameworks need tidying up, training for frontline professionals, multi-agency collaboration, preventative services and early intervention, focus on trauma-informed care, and holistic safeguarding strategies. Now, these recommendations collectively and obviously advocate for a systemic shift, moving beyond the kind of current state of fragmentation to create a more cohesive child-centred safeguarding system. Now, as you'd expect from a government report, it emphasises the big picture stuff, and that's okay. And actually, it's really important. And while that's understandable, and arguably that's what the remit of the report is, it's also the report's biggest failing for me. So good data, consistent practice, stack guidance, trauma-informed practice, etc. We've heard it all before. Nearly every child practice review, as I've said, and SCR, since time immemorial, has had those. What the report lacked for me was clear examples of effective practice that could form the basis of future policy formation. That said, there were some thoughts and ideas strewn throughout that piqued my interest, so I've let my mind wander on these and expanded them a little and tried to summarise what those of us in the real world might do to help kids in the interim, and I'm going to make that the focus of next week's post. It's kind of, what does this all mean for you and I working on the ground? So some final thoughts on this one. The Children on the Margins report serves as a wake-up call, it does, for addressing child marginalisation in Wales and more generally. And while the systemic challenges are significant, the report highlights some practical and achievable steps that, if implemented, could help transform the lives of vulnerable children. It really could. For practitioners, the message is clear from those recommendations. Focus on relationship, build trust, listen deeply, act consistently. There's mention of prioritising your own well-being and so on. I'm going to focus on that and more next week. But for now, though, I really hope the Welsh Government can get over the inertia, stop talking to itself, and start implementing policies and resources to set a framework for practitioners to facilitate the change that we all know that we can make. So together, I'm absolutely convinced, as always, that we can create a society where no child feels forgotten, ignored, or left behind. So that's it for this one. Thanks, guys. It's great to have you here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.